Okay, folks, I'm live. I'm waiting for my guest. Well, this live stream is gonna talk about life through a lens. That's the subject. I'm tech for your needs, and let's go. Let's get this ready. Let me fix myself. I'm new to this live streaming platform and trying to get better. So let's see if it works. I'm waiting for my guest. I'm trying my best, and let me put him right there. Add to screen. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I'm just trying my best, but I'm lost. Before I get started, let me put the phone on airplane mode because it already started bothering me. Well, okay. My name is Steph for your niece, and my guest is Michael Pepper Talk. And today we're going to talk about life through a lens. So we're going to divide it in two topics. The first topic is going to be content creators, and then second, non-content creators. I'm gonna give a little explanation behind what is the topic about. We're going to talk about 10 minutes, and then we're going to take questions. And in order to see your question, can you put a Q and then the question so it'll be easier for me and him to find it? So the reason that I'm bringing this topic back again, this is my second time, because one time we talked about it, but not enough. So when it's time to put the lens down, yes, you're a content creator, and by going through the lens, it give you like more practice if you advance more money and different stuff, right? For your creation needs. But sometimes you got to let that go and you got to live in the moment. That's why I wanted to use this topic because, yes, as content creators and non content creators, we always on the go, 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 and putting everything through the lens. So I was just wondering. So before we get started, I want to say hi to a couple of people. Big John, Tech Boner, share, like, and do everything so people can see it more. So, what do you think about this topic? When is enough to put the camera down? When's enough to live life and not to always be through the lens? Yes, before you answer this, yes, we need the lens to capture a moment in a lifetime so we can reflect back. But sometimes we gotta let it go. Like the other day, I was with my cousin. We had a dinner in her house, and we both got tested for COVID. So I said, okay, I said gratitude. We have a dinner, for her birthday. So I said, okay, I'm not gonna take a picture right now. We're gonna have a moment for 10 minutes. After the 10 minutes, I'll take pictures. It's you and I. So go ahead, take the floor.
So I think it depends because what if you are a single person and like that's your way of making money to try to like build things up before maybe you start dating and start looking towards like developing in that aspect of so I think it depends on the person
Hmm.
as far as that, but also for me,
Hmm.
because I have a young son and I'm capturing so many things that there's quite often that like when we go for a walk, I bring my camera or I bring my phone or something because those are opportunities you don't get back again. We went to the park about a week ago because it's been kind of cold lately, and and we're walking, and he sticks it between the rungs on this bridge and looks out. So I hop down real quick on the trail beside it and turn around and try to take a picture of him. And that's opportunity that wouldn't have happened if I didn't have my camera or something with me to take a picture, and memories for other people that weren't there and things like that. I think if other people had been there and we are just all hanging out and enjoying it, it might be different but to be able to just bring that back and share it with um, my parents and my mother-in-law and father-in-law and stuff and be able to share those opportunities, that's one aspect. But then you also, as a content creator, we have, I guess, when we first start, there's more times where it takes time to develop that speed, I guess. So it takes you longer to shoot and to edit and things like that. So as you get better, I think the opportunity and the chances to put down the camera will happen. But at first, it might take you 3 hours to get 5 minutes of B-roll and things like that because you keep having to reshoot because maybe you're just doing one of these to do your B-roll and you don't have
Hmm.
you don't have like a steady cam, or you don't have
Mm-hmm.
fancy equipment to be able to do that stuff. And the same thing comes with audio. So you might reshoot stuff because you're doing a voiceover, and I don't know, neighbors are being loud, or there's some vehicle goes flying by roaring its engine, or things like that. So at first, it's those opportunities that take a little bit longer because of where you're at. And then as you develop, and maybe you get a lav microphone, and maybe you perfect your technique, that in turn will provide opportunities for you to put the camera down and step back and get back into the real world. And maybe you get to the point where you only make one video a week because your quality is stepped up, and you're working with companies, and so they're providing financial opportunity. So maybe, as that happens for some people, they're able to do 1 or 2 videos a week, as opposed to you're doing videos every day to just try to get be seen. And so, for example, Jacqueline, when she first started, she's posting quite often, and now I know she doesn't post as often, but she's working on more of a technique, and she has podcasts she's doing, and she's doing other
Mm-hmm.
things that she can do without a camera, where, I mean, I guess there technically is a camera because she's sitting in front of the computer talking to the person, but not in the aspect of that we see that, because
Mm-hmm.
we just hear the audio from the podcast, and we see her post pictures on Twitter and stuff like that. But
Yeah, if you see any question, we can answer. I'll be gladly to get back to the also comments. One thing that I was gonna say, you're right on everything, but sometimes if you're doing it like a family, well, let's go on the other side of the content creator. That part I agree with you 100% because you're learning, you're crafting your skills. The more you do, the more you practice. Let's say, for example, not like a simple event like where your cousin, like I explained earlier. And yes, sometimes we want to Instagram, we want to this and that, but sometimes you got to turn it off. And if that's a part you're not making money, just in the general life, you're like, okay, let me turn it off for a second, and then after we spend 5, 10 minutes, then I could go back to the camera because I get it time. Sometimes intimate times like that is time to put it down, but on the other hand, sometimes you cannot put it down because you're in a working environment. You know what I mean? So it depends. I agree with you. That's why I was trying to bring this subject because people don't think enough that we always, no matter if you're a regular person, a non-content creator or regular creator, you always with this. What the most thing that people do with this? Pictures. Why? Like you said, for memories. Yes, I mean you could catch your kid and stuff like that. Those are good memories. But sometimes you be like, oh, let me put it down for a second. I just want to hug my kid and play with him. You know what I mean? And just it's a cute moment. By the time you do this and this and this, you missed the laugh from him. You catched it, but you didn't catch the essence within you. You know what I mean? Like, okay, let's put this down and let's play with the kid, or let's hug my mom. You know what I mean? Sometimes we got to put it down, and that's just the narration I'm talking today because people don't know how to when to put it down, and some people go overboard, always on the lens. And then yeah, you could look back to the moments, but it's not the same thing as being there present. If you get what I mean, it go both ways. I agree with you, but you got to also take into consideration the fine balance of am I going to put it down a little bit to enjoy this moment and then like I said, you could divide it. Oh, I'm gonna be here half an hour, so I'll divide 20 minutes and 10 on camera and 10 with them. I don't know if you know what I'm trying to talk about.
yeah, the 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 instances that you have divided households is another
Hmm.
situation where,
Correct.
maybe, I don't know, dad only gets the weekend with their kid, or maybe every other week, and m- maybe that week that you have your kid, though, also work, and so they're with a sitter during the day, so you get home from work and you sit down and you just play with them, and then when they go to bed you can get in front of the camera, or do what you do. But there's also chances in which sometimes you
Mhm.
can't do that because, you know, other people's time doesn't allow it because
Correct.
sometimes, you might be on the East Coast and they might be on the West Coast. And so, or the other way around, I guess. So, 8 o'clock your time would be 11 o'clock at night their time. So they gotta work during the day so that
Mhm.
you're not up super late and they're not up super late. And,
Mhm.
um, but then we also have to think about,
Mhm.
um, in particular, right now, I feel like this provides a good opportunity of discussion to talk about cameras and the idea that it's important more than just when we think, because there are a lot of people that are sick.
Mhm.
And so the only way they get to see loved ones is through things like Skype or FaceTime or Zoom or
Correct.
photos
I
or
agree.
video clips of them. And that's the safe, healthy way of taking the opportunity to do that, I guess.
No, I agree because you and I I mean I'm not much older than you. I don't care telling my age, but back in the day, I remember that you know the innocent we used to play, have fun, not always glued to social media because all that pretend to camera, all everything is damn boring to the lens. So and then it depends how you grew up and depends. That's why I put in a different different niche when it was not advanced technology. Now that it's advanced, and how you feel about it, and it's good to catch moments. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes I feel that too much on the lens is not good enough. Like Jake says earlier. See, sometimes you just need to be present and put your phone away. Sometimes not always. You know, it just depends on the situation.
What I find shameful to see is
Hmm.
um my one brother who I haven't seen in a while, but last time I saw him it was like I was only going to be there for a little bit and he was constantly on the phone between work calling him and I get like my sister-in-law was at the grocery store, so she called to make sure there was anything that he didn't want to add to the list. That's okay, but like I feel like there's times where if you can, you just kind of need to say no. When I'm off from work, I'm off from work. Like,
Correct.
and not necessarily say, well, you're going to pay me more because if you're going to call me while I'm off, just say no. When I am out from work, I am out from work. Like, call somebody else, that's working, or have somebody else on call, or, split it between us. Because I get there's certain opportunities. My one brother, he was only one of two people where he worked that could do that knew how to operate certain equipment as an engineer. And so those instances I get. But sometimes there's just those like, maybe you need to find a different job so you don't miss out on your kids' whole and family's whole childhood. And there has to be a point in which you say no, or you're going to work 24/7 and never sleep because you're going to be falling asleep and they'll call you and you'll be working
Hmm.
till 5 o'clock in the morning and then you're back up at 6 to go to work and you have 1 hour in between and it's just not working well.
Just yeah, it's true that's why I've been looking at today's society, and I'm a person that I like to study human behavior, but it's difficult because I've been studying lately, looking at the social media aspect. Why why consume so much time on? Because you always, no matter if you're in front of the lens or just looking at like a video. If you're looking at a video, right, where you're looking at a video on your computer, on your phone, but still, that's the image that you're looking at an image. It's still kind of through a lens because you're looking at it. They provided information and the entertainment, but it's just difficult because a lot like my customer was telling me, I'm glad that you're spending time and I said, you put your phone down because they know me as a techie. I'm always on my phone taking pictures. And like, she was like, I'm grateful that you took 10 minutes when you started talking to me. You said, I'm gonna give you 10 to 15 minutes. No distraction. Just you and I have fun with the family, do what we gotta do for your little birthday because everybody got tested, and then we'll go back to the pictures and the rest, you know. And it, I mean, and yes, and in those instances you could do that because that's a small part. You're not getting paid, but sometimes you're getting paid. You know what I mean? So it depends. How much how much being through the lens is gonna affect you from your personal life because you're always on the lens, see? But you always gotta make money. But like you say, if you're established and you're a content creator that knows your skills very well, you could do it faster, shorter time. It depends all on your level of skills.
I agree. I gotta grab something real quick. I just realized my laptop is not drawing power and I didn't realize it was low. So
Okay. So I
I'll
mean I'll
be
take
right back.
over. Yeah, let me keep reading. Correct, because I agree with Jake because sometimes people be like, "Oh, you always on the phone, you always doing social media, you always want to get big, you always want to be famous, or not famous, but whatever is the situation you're trying to do it for. Oh, you always trying to get value, but you don't get time for me. You see, there comes a time. That's why, I mean, I know I'm a techie channel, but this is it's concerning because people are not divided their time correctly, and that's what I'm trying to get at. And I agree with your point of view. Thanks for your questions. They're very helpful. It's a limit for everything, but sometimes you don't have a choice. But okay, if I don't work the 70 hours, I don't eat tomorrow. It all depends on your income and situation and stuff like that. But that's why. And let me know what you think about this subject. If it's a thumbs up, thumbs down. I mean, it depends. So I just want to bring this because nobody had the discussion. Everybody just go, 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 and they don't think, wait, let's take a minute and have a chill minute and a pause. So let me go back to the next comment. Yeah, time management is crucial and finding a consistency on the workflow, but it just depends, like I said earlier, again, on your skill level set. If your skills are not there, so you're gonna take 5 hours to do it longer. But that's come with the territory of improving yourself. So because no matter everywhere you look, no matter you are always constantly faced with the lens, life through a lens, always, always, because that's what it's been portrayed. How many social medias? The biggest social media is Instagram. One of them is Instagram. Why do you do pictures? You do that on Facebook. You know, you're all constantly doing that. But yeah, sometimes you got to put it down. When you're gonna realize that when it's not. I mean, that's just why I wanted to bring this subject. It's just it's good and good to my heart. This subject. So let me see. Oh, he went away. He'll come back. Let me put him back. Okay, there you go.
I am back. I had to I accidentally
Mhm.
broke my adapter, so my camera cut off. So I went to put it back,
Oh,
refresh the page because you know how StreamYard
mhm.
works. If your camera disconnects, you can't just
True.
go back into it. So
So, do you think that what you think about this topic is a it's a good topic? Once you turn it off, once you turn it on. I mean, I picked this topic because this is my second time talking about it. But I feel as though, as today's society, we just go, 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 and always front of the lens. No matter everywhere that you look, there's always a camera, somebody taking a picture. And I agree with moments are crucial, but sometimes you got to live life for a second. Hey, let's take it to chill pill, and you know,
some people are too. I think it comes down to more. Um, like what you're discussing is almost makes me think of more than being in front of the camera as more like being in front of the screen
correct.
because that's a problem too with people. Um, and I think it's gotten worse because you're there in front of it for work,
Hmm.
and then you're there in front of it for
Recreational.
family time, and if you're a content creator, you're there in front of it again. And some people, and a lot of people are content creators and they're having like normal life time, so they don't do it full time, so they have a regular job where they're probably in front of the computer. And
Hmm.
then when that day ends, if they hop on a stream or they're making videos or whatever they're doing, it happens all over again. And I just think that that's
Unhealthier
um,
sometimes.
unhealthy. Yes.
I do understand that we need to grind, and the grind is good because the more you do something, the more you get better, like you said, and then your skill sets get better and faster. It's true, but there's a time and a place for everything, and that's why I want to discuss it because every because I was looking around today, walking around just alone in downtown. I went to buy a couple of clothes, excuse me, for my aunt's funeral, and I'm looking, I'm like, wait a minute, everybody is on their phone. They're constantly on their phone, and then the most thing what they do besides what the most thing they're doing is being on social media. The most thing because I heard people talking about, oh, I can't wait to take this picture for Instagram with, all this and that, and I'm like, why are you always through a lens? Why can't you just put it off for a second? Let's live life. Like when I was growing up, it was perfectly. Kids was outside playing 24/7. Now kids are glued. Oh, mommy, can I be a YouTuber? Mommy, I want to be a TikTok. They're even 3 years old. You know what I mean?
Um, yeah, social world construct because of the way society is right now is really dangerous, and the fact that we're
Hmm.
getting our education um by the same method,
Hmm.
um you're in front of a computer because that's the only way the teachers can work right now because of everything that's going on and being safe and
Correct.
healthy. But
Oh, you got muted.
there's
There
no
you go.
hands on, then I don't know why my microphone muted. That was weird.
Yeah, that's weird.
It muted itself.
Yeah, I noticed that.
I was like,
Tech
at the same
woes.
time, yeah, that's um, dangerous because a lot of people learn by you being there and showing them, writing
Oh,
down, and things like that.
just one point is coming out. Thank you. Go ahead. My bad.
And that's dangerous, just really dangerous to be living in front of a device all the time. It's not good for your eyes either.
Hmm.
But unfortunately, it happens. And the other thing I was thinking about when you were talking about this, though,
Hmm.
that's really important to think about the potential opportunity that you can take. If you're going to sit there in front of your phone, right, and you're going to watch videos or whatever, and you're watching YouTube, like AirPlay it or Chromecast or whatever you have to do to get it on the TV so that other people can watch with you or whatever. And
Hmm.
then you're spending family time doing it, and then they might appreciate and understand why, and they might learn along with you or see kind of, oh, why do you like this, or have questions for you, at least if you can. I know there's been times where I can't do that because my wife gets annoyed of me watching videos on the same thing, but she doesn't understand I'm studying that.
Exactly my
I'm
point. My family be
studying
like,
the filming methods, but
no, all you do, that's all you do. YouTube. You talk about content creation, and you still haven't make $1 million. But I still making money a little bit. That's my
it's
family.
just it's one of those things that people, I don't know, I have a hard time because people don't tend to understand that this is just what we have to do, to survive, get by. Um, this is what we enjoy doing right now. It's technically a hobby, but eventually I mean, I have opportunities that I've been given that I wouldn't have been given if I wasn't doing this.
Correct.
Including making friends and stuff, but like companies that I've connected with, skills that I've developed. It's helped with talking in front of people. It's helped my thinking process. It's helped my memory because only 30, but man, my memory has been, I don't know what's happening lately. It's just been all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. I mean, it does give you the opportunity to get more skills on and skill sets to the next level. Like you said, the more you do it, the more it's just gonna help you to better yourself for a better tomorrow. Yeah.
And
So before we continue, I want to say something, folks. Don't forget to like, subscribe. If you're part of the replay crew, I appreciate you. And any comments are welcome. And thanks for phone take a word for coming in. For the crispy video. I appreciate it. I'm trying to work on my, quality to get improved. And go ahead. Now, I want to have an open discussion. Since we discussed this, whatever you want to discuss, we could discuss and take questions. So we already beat a dead horse the topic. So it's free. Whatever you want to talk about phone or whatever you want to talk is fine. I'll continue talking about the subject. It doesn't matter.
I want to talk about, I want to talk about the new Snapdragon 888
Okay, go
announcement
ahead.
with the processor. And I know there's going to be people that are going to be like, oh, that's Android or, whatever. But I feel like right now the Apple M1 has been talked to death. The iPhones have been talked to death. But
Hmm.
this is something that's not really been, and I've been reading about it. And one of the significant things that I thought was cool is that, and I know it's limited right now because there's probably maybe 1% of all people that own a Samsung device that even use Samsung DeX. But one of the things that they announced that this chip was going to allow them to do because of the performance increase, like 30 to 35% performance increase, is they're actually going to be able to have the DeX experience the files, and photos and things like that. You'll actually be able to have those separate from your phone if you want to. Or right now, whatever you do on your phone, if you go into DeX, it's kind of together, which can be kind of annoying because um, you open a web browser and it's in desktop mode in DeX, and you open things, and then when you go back to the normal mode, they're all there running um, in like the in your where's in your background in your recent apps. They're all sitting, in your recent apps there. They're all just sitting there,
Hmm.
and they're all in a funky way. And then when you tap one of them, it has to refresh to adjust to the format of the device. And I think that this will provide an opportunity to change that so that when you're switching back and forth, the apps don't have to refresh because they can be in their own format. So when it's in the phone, it can be in the phone format. And when you unplug, it runs separately, so it doesn't have to refresh because it's not going to show up. It's not going to show in the recent apps. It's not going to even be there. So you don't have to worry about that, and vice versa. You don't have to worry about it refreshing to show the desktop format. It's just going to launch into it. Um, but at the same time, this also brings up another topic that I saw today, that Motorola, who, yes, they still exist. A lot of people probably don't realize they're still around. Um, Couple things, they're set to announce a new Moto G phone that's going to be a flagship level
Oh yeah, I heard
early
about a
next
little bit.
year. And then they showed off their desktop interface at the Qualcomm conference, or whatever they call it,
Hmm.
Qualcomm experience, or whatever
Conference call.
Whatever their thing was this year, where they sent out like the chip submerged inside this clear stuff to several people, so they have the chip, and they do that every year with like the major, whenever there's a new Qualcomm chip that comes out, they send a new. And then I even saw a couple of people that had a phone that was running it. They couldn't show you the phone running it. Like, they could show you the back of it, but they couldn't show the actual operating system running or anything, because it's basically like Qualcomm made the software. So it's not like it's running, it's running kind of a pure version of Android, but that's about it. So my question is, they're seeing this performance increase over last year's chip, but once companies like get their hands on it and throw all their software on top of it, is it really going to be any faster? And then the other thing is, if Google decides to go back and do a flagship series, I guess technically the Pixel 5 was their flagship this year, but what I mean is, like, if they go and decide to put this new Snapdragon chip in the Pixel 6 and do that, it will be pretty smooth and pretty pure. But then if Samsung comes out with a phone, and other companies that like to throw all their UI on top of it, I feel like it's just not going to be as fast as what people think. At least the change is not going to be as fast or as much drastic as what people think. And they're showing benchmarks, and they're saying, oh, it's testing at 750,000 on this, and that the iPhone A14 chip only tests at this and that. The problem is, they're showing it without it having to really run anything else in the background. It's not being taxed. So when they throw it on an actual phone, even one that's running something pure, or even like an Asus phone, which the gaming phones that have a bunch of RAM in there, that they tend to get pretty high scores, or like a Pixel, that like the Pixel 4 and 4 XL that got a pretty good score, at least amongst devices running that chip. And Samsung runs 12 and 16 gigs of RAM and all this stuff, but they also run so much on top of it that it doesn't matter if it benchmarks like that. The real world performance is substantially different. I mean, my desktop computer benchmarks crazy high, but it has 32 gigs of RAM and a 8 gig RAM video card, and it has I'm running 4.2 gigahertz on all cores, and my laptop can run 5.3 on all its 6 cores, and it has 16 gigs of RAM and a RTX 2060 with 6 gigs of RAM on the video card. But this laptop that has 8 gigs of RAM, and it has an 8-core processor, but only 4 cores actually run when you're doing intensive tasks, and then it has the other 4 cores for normal things, is beating out a computer that costs one's about 60% more than this, and the other is about 80%, more expensive. And those numbers just don't mean anything anymore. And who cares, because benchmarks show a single instance, and some of those are optimized for some hardware better than others. So I think that's
correct. I agree with that.
That's what we're seeing with hardware now, is they need to optimize more than just making the processor faster, because it's not going to make a difference if it's not designed to work with the hardware.
Yeah, I agree, because also if the software is not optimized for the actual hardware, it's both going hand in hand. I agree, because that's the problem with Adobe Premiere in some instances. Yeah, go ahead.
Yates' comment says he was dead wrong on the Mac M1 chip. Yeah, he and I were going back and forth the other day about this, and it was funny because I'm sitting here typing to him on a device running it, and and it's funny. Yeah. Yeah, there were some really bad benchmarks because people were testing the software before it was optimized for the chip. So they were testing it running through Rosetta, which essentially is translating it from x86 64-bit format into the to
M1 chip.
interface with the
Mhm.
M1, which is completely different. And he says he thinks 6 gigs of RAM is best to allow plenty of headroom. So
At the
in
current
all
time,
honesty,
yes. Go ahead.
if somebody's gonna do 16 gigs of RAM, we've talked about this. You and I
Mhm.
had that
Yeah,
long FaceTime. But
yeah, true.
if they're gonna do it, they might as well go to if they're not gonna do the Mac Mini, if they're going portable, um, jump up to that MacBook Pro, because if you're somebody that's doing intensive enough stuff that you think you're gonna go through 16 gigs of RAM like that, you're probably gonna wanna have the fan cooling the device. I mean, right now, with everything I have hooked up,
Mhm.
I had my monitor hooked up and it was giving me a little bit of issues because the monitor, um,
Compatibility.
well, it only outputs 15 watts through the USB to
Oh yeah,
power,
you told me
and
the other
that's not
day.
enough. So it was actually the computer was drawing more power than it was providing. So I unplugged that and plugged in and then my dongle is getting really, really hot, my adapter, but that's because it's pulling 8.4 volts or
Mm.
8.4 watts to power my plus 48-volt phantom power back out of it
Mhm.
to power the microphone. So it's going to get warm, but in the laptop's warm, but it's not like I'm barely hot. Like I'm touching the hottest spots and it's warm. I can leave my hands sitting there. I had a 13-inch MacBook Pro, the one that came out earlier this year, the Intel one,
Oh yeah, you had
and
for a while.
I had it for like a week and it had fans on it, and that thing still got hotter than this does and this has no fans. Actually, that thing got to the point where I had it shut off on me. I think you saw that stream where I
Yeah, I
had
think
to
I did. Yeah, I think I did
jump
that.
devices. It actually shut off on me. I was like, I've never, because it overheated. This is warm. Um,
Yeah, but okay,
like I
but
wouldn't
yeah,
set it on my
go ahead.
lap because it would be uncomfortable, but it's not going to burn me. But I'm also doing stuff right now that I wouldn't normally be doing. So I have OBS running in the background along with remote view for my camera. Plus, I have StreamYard open in one tab, and then I have YouTube open in another tab in Chrome. And normally, I would have those things open, but I would actually have the second tab for YouTube would be Safari instead of Chrome, just so I don't have both of those competing with each other. But I've had no issues. And the other day, when I was just joining a stream, I just used the camera on it and the microphones in it. And it ran just
Mm.
fine. And I was on for an hour and it only
You
dropped
mean
4%.
Apple
Now
Apple
today
Monster?
yeah. I
Okay,
mean,
okay.
today it dropped substantially more, but I'm taxing it pretty hard right now compared to um, what I might normally do. Plus, I need to
Yeah.
find, I'm not using the cord that actually came with my camera. I'm using a longer one, and that's going to make it even
Oh,
worse because in order for it to get enough power from the computer is actually going to have to provide more power back so that when it gets to the end of that 2 meter long cable, actually it's longer than that, it's like 3 meters long, it will have enough power for the camera. And so I need to find the one that came with it and stuff. But
now that you
I still
mentioned
think
OBS, go ahead. I just want to add something.
um,
Sorry to interrupt you, but go ahead, finish, and then I'll add.
Gates says something about watching a video where killing a Ryzen 7 custom PC build. That's what I
Oh,
have. I
let
have
me
a
put it on.
Ryzen 7. I mean, I have an older one. It's a 2700X. It's overclocked. So it runs, instead of the base being 3.7, it runs at 3.9 base and it boosts up to 4.2. And then in my GPU is also overclocked, and my RAM is running at 3200 megahertz, even though it normally only runs at 3000. That was a $1,600 computer to build, and this thing apps launch significantly faster. It's it's warm right now, but like I said, of what it's doing, and it's quiet.
So now that we're talking about Apple, do you think so far Apple hitting its new roadmap is headed in the right direction with the M1 chip?
I
I mean,
do.
it's still too early because it's early because it's the first gen. We haven't had like 5, 6 months, but I just want to take your opinion so far. What you think of owning it?
So, Michael Josh of Gadget Cat,
Oh yeah, I know him.
he he phrased it well when he said that this is not their first generation because they've been making the A series chip for, they're on to the A14 now. They got their hands officially
Absolutely.
on taking
Right.
over the with um so Apple's been doing it kind of in-house for going on 10 now.
Hmm.
I think they started with the A3 or the A4 officially handling everything. Before that, they were essentially telling companies like TSMC,
Didn't they have the
this is how we want
G5
it
or
to be
something?
designed.
I don't know. Correct me if I'm mistaken, because I'm trying to see. I heard. I can't remember what I read. I think it was on Twitter that they did have a custom chip besides the phones, the 14 to 13 A chip. They had the Bionic. They had something G5. Am I right or wrong? I heard something like that. I can't recall the article. Something
Oh,
way back. Something G5. Something. I don't know if I'm wrong or right. So I can't deny or
they
confirm. That's what I'm asking you.
experimented with working with Intel to create a completely custom Intel chip with their G5 tower, I think is what
Oh,
you
okay,
were.
that's what I was talking about then.
But it didn't last. They didn't actually bring it to
Oh,
public.
so that didn't came to fruition.
No, because Intel, and then that's also, I think, when they started having the issues with NVIDIA, and
Oh yeah.
eventually that whole thing happened where they don't work with them anymore. Um, the thing is,
Mhm.
for most people, like 99.9% of people are probably not going to be pushing their device as hard as I am right now. And like I said, it's warm. I wouldn't put it
Mhm.
on my lap, but even a laptop that's designed to run way cooler would still get warm enough where it would be uncomfortable. I mean, I get uncomfortable just with having a heavy blanket on my lap for too long because your
Oh yeah,
body
it's true.
creates heat. But it's impressive. The speakers have been impressive. Yeah, Rene Ritchie
Yeah.
did a really good video on it. I watched, and then Greg Gadget's video today was pretty funny.
Oh, I haven't
This
watched
is
that yet.
future Greg. You'll have to watch it. It's pretty
Mhm.
funny. Um, the problem I have is so many people trying to compare to, like, they're now trying to compare the MacBook Air to the MacBook Pro because of they heard how well the performance is, but not understanding that the Air has always been the Air. It's always been the
Mhm.
like you it's designed for people that need to do regular work. Things that would run fine on like a Chromebook with like 4 gigs of RAM and a 4-year-old processor and stuff like, but it's going to run smoother on here. You're going to be able to have more tabs open. You're going to be able to have a bunch of applications open. You're going to be able to swipe up with 4 fingers to do the gesture that opens all the
Mhm.
windows. You're going to be able to, um, you know, you're going to be able to plug into an external monitor and have a bunch of windows open on there. I've seen people have 50 tabs open and running perfectly fine. You're going to be able to do all the stuff you need to be able to do,
Yeah, for
but
basic
you're
needs, it's good.
also going to be able to edit videos, up to 10 to 15 minutes with 6 layers on them.
Not too
That,
complicated.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Also, since we're talking about Apple, I've been hearing people having trouble with a Mac Mini Bluetooth issues, but they found a way to fix it. They disconnect it and reconnect it back, and the second time it'll work. That's basically what I'm
Yeah,
hearing.
yeah, because it
Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. All right, later. Go ahead.
have a good night, Yates. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for chatting with me as always in chats and for joining us here tonight. Have fun with the
Much
panel.
appreciated.
Wow, that happened. What was I gonna
Then
say?
about the Mac Mini Bluetooth issues we was
Oh
talking
yeah,
about.
so the thing is, okay, so there have been people that have gotten really, 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 really excited that have been waiting for this, that were PC people that are like, oh, I can go get a computer that performs this well. And they see people playing like World of Warcraft at 60 frames per second on these things with decent settings. And even if they drop the settings slightly down from like 1440p to 1080p, they're seeing like 90, 100, 120 frames per second. You know, they're seeing higher speeds on games, and then easier to run games are performing even better. And that's on like the base Air. That's without the extra core and extra RAM and all that stuff. So they're excited and they're hopping over, but they might have an older desktop or something like that. So they get a Mac Mini, they plug the thing in, and they expect Bluetooth to connect to their non-Apple Bluetooth devices right away. But what happens is there's a window that pops up that will say something about that it didn't recognize any. Basically, it didn't recognize any Apple Bluetooth keyboard, mouse, trackpad, because Apple peripherals will connect by default during that setup wirelessly. Like whatever they have it set to do, it will scan, and then their peripherals will see it, connect to it, and do the handshake and basically say, oh, it's okay right away. Where if you have third-party accessories, some of them require like holding a certain button down to initiate the connection and things. So what it will do when it can't find anything is it will basically it does this. I can't remember how it phrases it because they changed it. But basically it will kind of go through this process of make sure it's discoverable.
Up, thanks for coming in. I appreciate it. Go ahead. My fault.
And then when you do that, it should connect. And then there's a process of, I actually had to do this with my wired keyboard. It will show shift, and then it will show a key to the right of it. So you got to hit like the Z on the keyboard, and then it will show shift and a key to the left of it. And you got to hit that key. And usually it's the question mark and the slash. So it can figure out what style keyboard you're using and program all the keys to work right.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
But if you wait too long, the Bluetooth connection for the Mac Mini will just shut off so that it's not trying to constantly search because that's using power. And if you have a laptop, you especially wouldn't want that, So with a desktop, it doesn't necessarily make a difference, but you don't want that Bluetooth constantly running, searching.
So I'm planning to go for 1 hour. Sorry, we got 10 minutes. After you finish this, I want to give you your perspective recommendation on buying guy for, if you don't mind, for the M1 chip, and then we'll close it with that, if you don't mind. Yeah. Like after this conversation, you give your opinion. Well, I think this is better for the student, for the content creation, because you know more than me. So I mean, and I value your opinion. So I want people that in the audience that listen to it, if you don't mind, and then we'll close with that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What I was gonna say is, now I had again. My brain just went. What was I talking about?
Fault. The Bluetooth connectivity.
Oh yeah. So what I've suggested to people is if they're using a Bluetooth keyboard and mouse that can't also be, if it can be also physically wired connection, because a lot of them, a lot of them you can also plug in with like a USB-C or micro USB to USB and plug in directly.
Or the
To
dongle.
do that, and then it will connect up, and then you can unplug it, and then it should stay, and then it should pop up the Bluetooth and be able to connect and be able to pair up. But the only thing about that is I don't know how when you disconnect it. So what I've also suggested to people is either to borrow, if they can borrow a wired mouse, because that's all you need, because you just need to be able to click. So if you have a Bluetooth um, keyboard and Bluetooth mouse, then you just need a wired mouse, and then you can use that to go to the Bluetooth setting to do search, and then your Bluetooth keyboard and mouse should show up in the search, and you can click on it, select it, and do the process like you do on any other computer. You'd have the same thing with a PC if you don't have a way to select it to get to the Bluetooth settings to search to find it to select it. I mean, if I just had a Bluetooth keyboard and mouse, I wouldn't be able to pair it to my desktop either.
I also found another recommendation on getting the blue wire mouse and all that. Very affordable. If you can't find one to borrow, I was the other day in Five Below, $10, $5. You just want the wire to work for a second. It's not like it's gonna break your pocket. You know what I mean? And they had an LED and everything, just a second. You know, that's another recommendation you could buy for cheap.
And also, in all honesty, um, I don't necessarily suggest Bluetooth very often for the people. Okay, so it depends on who you are and what you're going to use it for. Because if you're doing content creation,
Yeah, this is the most that this is what I have.
um, at least what I've had issues with, and obviously you have a really nice one there, and if you have some really nice peripherals, I could get that. Maybe you want to use it with maybe you have a gaming desktop, and then you get a Mac for editing your videos on your gaming experience, or for doing music creation or whatever, and you want to use the same keyboard and mouse. I get that, but I feel like if you want the best interaction to feel like when you click and drag it's happening right away, I would always suggest wired anyways, even if, because I've even found that my rather inexpensive keyboard and mouse that I bought as a kit on Amazon for like $50, I feel like that's a better experience than when I tried to use wireless one. But it just depends on what you're using it for and experience and stuff. I don't know. And then of course, Apple doesn't even really make wired peripherals anymore. Their trackpad is wireless. You can get wired keyboard. The advantage of wireless is you only have the two USB-C/Thunderbolt ports and the two regular USB ports on the back of the Mac Mini. So if you fill those ports with a wired keyboard and mouse, then you're going to have to get an adapter for the USB-C ports to plug anything else in. Jason from Painley Filianis Tech did a video today actually on a hub that you can get that fits under the Mac Mini. It matches the color, at least the space gray one. If you have the silver,
they had that before. This one they had it. I've seen that in the older generation too.
So
that's a couple of videos.
And it's got USB ports, couple extra USB-C ports, and like a SD and micro SD card slot.
Yeah.
And I think that is a pretty cool thing to have. But so you wanted me to kind of talk about who I thought like
Be
the Air
best
would be
suited for,
for, and
yeah, best suited if it's for student content creation, or you recommend the Mini, the Pro to certain people. You could use people as, you could use me as example if you want to, or
okay,
generalize
so
before we
you
close
and
this
I
out.
had this conversation the other night where
Mhm.
you said I'm saving up, you have an iPad, but you want something to use along with it. You want something to be able to do some editing on, which you can still do on your iPad, but long-term typing, because if you're using your Magic Keyboard, your battery life is going to be affected if you're out and about. You get good battery life, you have um dedicated keyboard. There's advantages. Hold on. I had to sneeze and I didn't want to blast off the microphone.
No, I understand. You're not the first person that did that.
Um, so I suggested, because you had a budget, which I
Mhm.
won't share with people. But
Mhm.
let's say something to me, I have a budget. It's 15. Let's say they say it's um, $1,750, and
Okay.
they're going, well, I can get the MacBook Pro 13-inch with 16 gigs. Uh, I can get it all the way up to, let's look here real quick.
Yeah, your internet is lagging a
That
little bit.
that should be, yeah, that should be, you would be able to get like the upgrade to the RAM, and at that point upgrade to
Don't forget taxes
512
because you gotta have that.
storage plus your taxes. So you would be able to bump up the RAM to the 16 gig. The base model Pro already has the 8-core GPU. The 512 and then you get 256, and that's $1,299. $200 more, so $1,499, bumps it up to 512 gigs. And
Hmm.
then from there, $200 more goes to $1,699. But if you threw in taxes, you'd be over your budget.
But that's fine because at that point, if it's not a lot of taxes, you could save up. You could just hold up and okay, let me save 3 more weeks. If it's a little taxes, if it's
Yeah.
not
But let's
astronomical.
but let's say my budget doesn't include taxes. Let's say somebody comes to me and
Okay.
they say, I know how much taxes are, so I know how much it would be, let's say it's, I don't know, 13% taxes here, and I know I have about $2,000, and so I know that I need to be close to 1750, because afterwards I'm going to hit close to my 2,000. Let's say that's the example, and they just tell me
Okay.
I
Cool.
have 1750 plus taxes. Um, well, I could say you can get yourself all the way up to 1699 for the 1 terabyte of storage, 16 gig of RAM MacBook Pro. Well, I wouldn't suggest that to them. What I would suggest is I would say save your money. Um, do 512 if you think 256 isn't enough,
Uh-huh.
because internal storage is going to be faster. But
True.
if 256 is good enough, which I think for most people it will be, because I installed everything that I've installed so far. So I've installed Chrome, OBS, the remote software for my camera, and a few other applications, and it's only 40 gigs, at
That's not bad.
210 available or whatever. So it's usually like 45 gigs of it, and I've installed some other stuff in there too. And then all my photos that synced down from the cloud and stuff are on there too. But you could easily transfer 100 gigs of video and photo files to edit internally, still have
tons of space available and then transfer it to an external drive. But if you want to have the overhead so you can store some videos locally, work on multiple, just have the excess space. You have a bunch of, I don't know, movies that you burned that you want to have local, and you have photos you want to have local, so you don't have to carry an external drive, then upgrade the, but that would be for a content creator, and that would be for somebody proof, and for somebody who is doing longer than 10-minute videos. So they're going to need the fans because the processor is going to throttle if they don't, and some things like that. But if you're doing shorter videos, 10 to 15 minutes or shorter, and you're not doing like more than 6 layers of video, I've seen people do, I saw somebody do 8 layers of 4K 60, H.5.
264 or 5?
No, 265, the newer, that's even more,
Oh, wow.
it's a smaller file, but it's harder to encode.
Okay.
I've seen them do that on the Air like I've had, which is fine. Oh, if you're going to be doing that and you're going to also have 15 tabs in Chrome open because you're researching what you need to do to help with your edits, on the laptop, and you're going to be trying to max the thing out, I would bump up. So here, if you're purely getting it for content creation, you're doing longer videos, you need to you care that your video is going to take 15 minutes to export versus 12. You care for those extra minutes. Get the MacBook Pro. I would suggest the $1299 model for most people, which you get 16 gigs of RAM, 256 storage. It's a step up from the base model. The base model is, excuse me. The base model is $1249. The base model is $1299. So I would suggest whatever it's the 16 gig of RAM model. So it's $1499. If you have the $200 extra, you can save up for a few weeks, bump up your storage. The thing is, RAM can't be upgraded, storage can. You can, external storage, and there's actually external storage that's equally as fast, if not faster, than the internal. Now, right now, and I think it's due to drivers, I saw a test that somebody did where they plugged in an external drive that was supposed to run at 3,000 megs per second, and it was only running at 450. But I think that's a driver thing right now.
Yes,
I think it with their particular drive or something. But even that's pretty fast. Like a couple gig file is still going to transfer in like a minute or so. I mean, it's still pretty fast.
I say if you're not doing Marquez level, or you're not doing Peter McKinnon or Matty Poya, then you're fine.
But if you're plugging into like if you're plugging into a 4K monitor and you're connecting up a bunch of dongles and you're doing live streams and you have like 20 things that you need to have connected all the time, that might be another reason to go with the Pro, because the fans will keep it cooler, and potentially battery health, like the total battery capacity, could be extended. But the thing is, I did all my live streams on my channel for the first several months on a 2013 MacBook Air, plugged into this monitor with all the stuff that I have plugged in right now, plugged into it. And it didn't really affect the battery capacity on that thing at all. And this is much different stuff. So then let's go backwards. And who would I suggest the model like I have to? I would suggest it to everybody. Like the general everybody. As in the people.
The general students, clerical work, stuff like that.
A general student, clerical work, photo editing would be perfectly fine. You could do crazy all sorts of layers. Most video editors, unless you're doing, like I said, longer than about a 10 or 15 minute video, or you're doing like 50 layers of 8K red RAW or something. At that point, if you can afford that technology, that camera, you're probably speccing out a MacBook Pro, or you have a 16-inch MacBook Pro, and I wouldn't suggest going with one of the new ones. Or you're going to wait for the update on the 16 at that point. If you're spending like 15 grand on a camera, you're probably going to wait or want to wait. But for most people and most of content like us will be able to use it for pretty fine.
Now, before we end this, I want to ask you one more question. I wanted to break, since we talk about students, remember you said for every student, but now let's break the category of students. What happens if you're doing coding, you're a coding student? Will you still recommend that one, or you bump it up? Because it also depends on the category of studies you're doing.
I would say for coding, it would be fine unless you're doing okay. If you're doing engineering, I would probably bump it up to the Pro. But I would also tell them to consider, if you are going above that, not base model of the Pro, but that kind of second step up, that the 16 gig 256 model, if you are going above that, so basically the 16 gig of RAM upgrade, and you're looking at closer to, $2,000 after taxes, and you can afford to go a little higher than that, go 500, that a 16-inch might actually suit the needs better, because a lot of those people are probably looking at multiple monitors, because here's the thing, these chips only support one external monitor. So if you're doing like
PC Computer Solution, go ahead.
If you're doing engineering, you might be looking at hooking this thing up to an external monitor that's pretty large, and you might be looking at hooking up something. But I saw a musician who uses a drum pad, a full like 89 key keyboard, like the musical keyboard. He had a microphone hooked up with it, has the foam pads around it. He has a pair of studio headphones hooked up to his audio interface. He has backup that backs up to a 1 terabyte solid state drive that's running RAID 0, which then in turn backs up to a 4 terabyte hard drive that's running in RAID 1, and he has that through a hub, and then his monitor runs through a single cable. And he has all that hooked up, and he's just using the base model. And he streams. Well, the thing is,
wow, you got me thinking now.
Put this up on a stand and provide air to it, that will help too. If you're sitting there and smothering the thing and it can't dissipate the heat away from the top and bottom of the keyboard, then that's one thing. But the other thing is, because there's no fan, you close this and it's not going to hurt the heat dissipation any more than if it's open, because some of the heat comes through the keyboard, but it's just going to still be able to go out kind of through the sides. A lot of the heat comes through the bottom, and it's just going out materials of the laptop on the air.
You get a pad and put on the bottom, the fan heat pad, and that could help.
But he just has it up on one of those angle stands that holds it up to his, and he has it off to the side, because he just reaches over and he'll use that trackpad sometimes.
Okay, gotcha.
But now he bought the Apple wireless trackpad to use. But before, he would reach over with that, and then he'd use a mouse for other things. And he has this hooked up to a big, like 34-inch curved display, and so he's running that all off from the base model. So for students, I would say, but here's the other thing. I would also suggest a very similar model to the Pro that you and I talked about, that's about $50 less, And why would I say why would I tell somebody to not spend the $50 more and go for the Pro?
True.
Why would I? Okay. Some people might think I'm crazy to say don't go to, but there are a couple instances where you might still spec it out similarly, but not spend that extra $50 for the Pro model. And that would be if you need a machine that's absolutely silent and you know that you're not going to, you need RAM, a lot of RAM. But it's not taxing on the CPU and GPU as much. Like you have a bunch of tabs open, that might be taxing on your RAM, but not necessarily doing things that require a lot of computation and graphics. Maybe you do a lot of research and you need a bunch of tabs open. You need a bunch of Excel, a bunch of like spreadsheet files and Word files, and you're looking at photos and stuff. You might need more RAM, but your CPU and GPU would be fine. The Air, and let's say you are in an area where you don't have a microphone that's going to block out fans really well. The Mac Pro will run rather silent and the fans won't kick on until it needs to, and once they kick on, they're not super loud. But if you're working in more of an enclosed space and you need a machine that's absolutely quiet, let's say you work in an office with a bunch of other people, or you're a student and you need to be able to do some intense things, but you don't want fans kicking on just because they're going to, because maybe the software tells them to. That's another thing. Or you work in an environment where there's some dust. Because there's no fans on this, it's not going to suck. There's nothing to suck in dust. Where if the other ones turn on at all, you might end up needing to pop that thing open every year or so and clean out some. So I would say and if you self upgrading in the next 2 to 3 years, I would say go with the Air and spec it with the RAM that you need. Buy external storage for most people, but for people that are looking at maybe 4 or 5 years and thinking that potentially they might be taxing this thing more than they do now, then the Pro, because of you never know, as they add more capabilities in software, as developers are moving apps over to this, as more are using it, since now it supports iPad apps as well. Although if they run on your phone perfectly fine and don't make it super hot, I can't imagine they'll make this super hot. If you need a brighter display, the Pro is an advantage. If you like the touch bar and like to program shortcuts into that and stuff, and the microphones are slightly better. But as far as that, the speakers are basically identical on the Air and the Pro from the testing I've seen. It gets plenty bright still. I mean, 400 nits is still pretty bright.
Also want to make
and slightly better battery life.
True.
On the Pro.
Also want to make a recommendation, since we're talking about students. Say if you're a student, right, but you're a regular student, like you're doing an English major, stuff like that, that it doesn't require, doing crazy stuff. You could get it away with the Mini. I'm just saying. I mean, I'm just in different levels of different.
Yes, if you don't need mobile, if you don't need mobile, you can just, and you could plug the thing into your TV, which you could. I mean, you could buy a 4K. You can buy a 4K TV right now for, like $200, $250, like a decent 4K, like 43-inch TV. Plug the thing in, and then just spend like $50 on a keyboard and mouse, and you'd have a rocket. If you need that, and you'd have a good setup for way cheaper than. But if you need portable,
and also you could add,
then you could
iPad.
Yeah, you could grab
the cheapest iPad.
My only thing is once you start doing that, though, you're looking at pretty close price wise, because at $699, then you add $300 between a monitor, keyboard, and mouse, or even $200. Then you're up to $899, $999, and you're looking at close to the same price as the base Air, or even
True,
the
but
slightly upgraded
sometimes you
Air.
get gifted, or sometimes you can find any monitor. You just want to, your regular student, you don't need like 1080p. You get 780p. Because I was talking to somebody after I talked to you the next day, and they're like, "Yo, I'm buying the mini because I'm a regular student. I'm only going for English major, and I'm already
Yeah.
in my second and a half year. And I said I'll buy that one, and I already got a cheap monitor that he bought, and like I said, in Five Below that is working. So
That's
you
true.
gotta wait.
It just depends
Well,
on if you need portability or not, because there's a lot of people that go, "Well, I need something that's portable too." And if you think about
Mhm.
the price difference between the between the mini and, although the thing is, the mini, as far as performance wise, is more like the MacBook Pro is, because it has the eight it has the extra eighth
Yeah,
core
that's
for the
true.
GPU. It
Good
has the
point.
fans that are going to cool it too. Um, so then when you think about that, you're looking at, it's about a $600 price difference. But on the other hand, if you really aren't going to ever use that eighth core and that extra processing, then you're closer in price to the Air, even if you add cheap peripherals to it. So if
Yeah,
somebody's,
true.
and then if you're suggesting, oh, grab an iPad, but if they don't need the touchscreen and the pencil and some of the features of that. So I've suggested the Air to a lot of people. I really
Oh, yeah,
like
that
it.
makes sense. I agree.
I know you've gone way over what you wanted to, but I just want to touch on one thing. It'll take me
Oh
like
no, go
2
ahead.
minutes.
I'm gonna wait. I'm 8 more minutes and do it 7:30. Cut it off. So
Okay.
go ahead. You're fine.
So some people would say, well, why would you not just buy an iPad? Like, why would you not buy an iPad Pro? Well, the problem is, look at the base model of an iPad Pro. Look at the base model of even an 11-inch
Hmm.
is what, $799
If it's not
for the
cellular,
11. If it's not cellular for the 11-inch, then add $300 for that if you want the Magic Keyboard. So now you're already $100 over the base MacBook Air. Add the Apple Pencil, that's $129. So now you're at close to the price. You're basically at the price of the 16 gig 512 storage Air. Like, once you add in a jump up and add in, $300 plus another. So once you add $430, and then if you add a
okay. So
case, so once you add
yeah,
450 to that, you're looking at close to the same price
you yeah you could use my sample. Go ahead.
as that 1249
So let's
MacBook
use me as a
Air,
sample. So
and
I
that's
bought
not
the
even.
let's use me as a sample. I bought the case, the cellular. Just add up everything. How much would I think I'm in a laptop territory.
Okay, so
Go ahead.
you have, which storage option do you have? You have the
128,
11-inch 20. You have the 2018, right?
2020
You got the 2020
cellular
11-inch cellular
128.
128. So it's the
Yes, sir.
base storage. So that without cellular, that's $799. With cellular, that adds 150, right?
Something like that. I'm not 100% sure. But let's go with that.
Something like, it's like 130 or 150. They did some weird things. It used to always be 150.
Okay.
So $949. Your Magic Keyboard was $300. Right
My
there, you're
extra
already at
case
12. That's 1240. That's the same price
plus the Pawtucket
as,
case.
I'm not even talking that yet. That's without Apple Pencil. That's without Pawtucket case. That's
Oh
without
yeah, that's true.
the skin. You're already at the
Mhm.
same price as the 16 gig, 512 gig storage MacBook Air. But here's what so if you had an Apple Pencil for
Which I have it.
130, the Pitaka case and the you got, I don't.
And a Dbrand skin.
Two of those were. What's the Pitaka Mag?
$70. I think it's $70.
And then the skin, the Dbrand skin.
$20.
Okay, so 70 and 20 is 90 plus the Apple Pencil, so that's 220. So now you're talking about you're at 1469. So you can spend $30 more than that and be at the 13-inch MacBook Pro model.
But to have transparency, yeah. To be honest,
but you have people... But here's what you don't get. You have no cellular on the MacBook. You can't just disconnect the screen and have it in a case to take with you portably. Like if you need something that might be able to handle being dropped, or if there's a little bit of rain, where if you have a case on the thing, you can do that. You don't have the portability of the cellular and being able to use that anywhere you have cellular signal. You don't have the touch screen. So if somebody is an artist, and wants to be able to draw right on the thing, iPad all the way. On the other hand, though, what I might also suggest to somebody is to get the Air, and then look at the iPad, the 10.2 inch. That's like, was it 329 or whatever?
Oh yeah, that's true. 329.
Because you could get the version of the MacBook Pro or the MacBook Air, I mean, with 16 gigs of RAM, plus that iPad for pretty close to what you're starting to get to with other things. But it just depends. A lot of people already have an iPad though.
Yeah.
So
the thing is that I didn't qualify. To be honest, I don't care. I'm full transparency. I did not qualify for the Apple credit card, so therefore I couldn't get it. So I went on my payment plan, which I don't care telling people, which I did a payment plan for the iPad, but the payment plan, I'm smart. I already paid 75%. I did 75%. I keep paying extra, so I'm trying to pay it
That's
faster.
the other thing, though, that the advantage with the iPad is, so let's say you can only afford the let's say your budget right now was the price for the iPad alone. Well, then you just buy the iPad, or an iPad, you just buy that and you add in the case or the keyboard case later, and you save up a little bit more and you add the pencil. Where with the MacBook, you're saving up and waiting until you can get it all. Where with like the iPad, you can kind of part it out if you wanted. So like if you really needed something to use right now and you're doing some video editing, I'd grab an iPad at a certain price point. But if you're getting the 12.9-inch, the base model of that without cellular is the same price as the 256 8 gig RAM base Air. So that is more of a struggle because it gets even more, you're adding another $200 on the price of the iPad. But yeah.
Well, with that said, with that said, I'm gonna end it up over here. I'm gonna say thank you for coming in. You can plug your social media. I'm gonna put everything on the description, but go ahead, the floor is yours, so people can find you.
Bienvenido. Y salud a nos amigos y los compadres de Sue, that way. You're that way.
Yeah.
Eat me. Thanks everybody for joining us. My name is Michael Pepper of Michael Pepper Tech and Michael Pepper Tech Live. You can find me at both of those things here on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram, as well as Michael Pepper Tech on Facebook. And that's where you can find me. And normally Thursday nights at 6 o'clock, you can find me live on my Michael Pepper Tech Live channel. But I've been joining other people last week was Thanksgiving. Tonight I'm foregoing it because, for one, I wasn't sure if my wife had to work, and I told you I would join you, and I don't feel like talking for another hour and a half.
Oh yeah, I understand.
There's no need
thanks
to.
for
I've been working.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Oh.
If you're part of the Play Crew, don't forget to hit that like, subscribe. My name is Tech for Your Knees, and you can find me at Twitter and Instagram. It's only two social media that I use. And with that said, we out. Peace.